Hi friends, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I have a bunch of cards that I made using the September Pink and Main Crafty Courtyard kit called Home Sweet Home. And I focused primarily on slimline cards. I didn't make a single A2 size card, which is crazy. But I had all those amazing slimline dies and I could not resist making a card using at least all of them. If you can hear Miles in the background, he really wants in here. Anyway, I made a bunch of slimline cards. So let's quit gabbing and let's go take a look at how I made these cards. For our first slimline card, we're going to be using the Leafy slimline die, and I went ahead and cut that out of the glitter cardstock that was in this kit. So I went ahead and cut that out and it was easy breezy, wonderful. And this is going to be our first card. So our first card is going to be a shaker. I'm going to show you how I'm going to take this 6x6 pattern paper and make it work for a slimline card. So I'm going to cut this right in half, so it'll be 3 inches by 3 inches, and I'm going to try and line up that pattern eventually. And you'll notice that those leaves have some veins in them, so I'm going to do my best to line that up in the back where the seam would be. If I'm going to make this a shaker, I need to use some acetate, so I'm just going to put a little liquid glue in some prominent areas so that this doesn't poke up. You don't need to completely cover the back. Be careful, because I did have a little bit of, or some spots where I put a little too much glue and it did seep through, but it really isn't noticeable on the card itself. So just be mindful of that. So I'll stick that down onto my acetate, and then I'm going to take this acetate and I am going to trim off all of the excess acetate in my guillotine trimmer, which makes it that much easier. Super, super simple. So I'll just line all those right up with the edge, and then I can trim off the excess. Easiest way I found to match that up. No problem there. But I do want another piece of acetate, so I'm going to make it pretty much the exact same size, or close to, and then I can trim off the excess. I'll show you a little trick about shakers to make it a little easier. All of my card bases are going to be 7 inches by 8.5 inches trimmed, and then I'm going to score those at 3.5 inches. Those will make them 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches closed. And then those are going to be all of my card bases for all the cards. So here I am taking those 3-inch by 6-inch pieces of cardstock, or the pattern paper, and I'm going to try and line that up with the pattern the best that I can anyway. Take a little glue, put it down on the bottom of that and the very top of this piece, and then I'll line that up, get that pattern as close as possible. Not that big of a deal because it really won't be noticeable. And then that'll make this really long piece that I can stick on the back and kind of manipulate where I'd need it to be. That's going to fit in there just perfectly. Again, I said this is going to be a shaker, so I'm going to be using some Doris skinny strips. I think there are a lot of companies that make these skinny type strips, and if you really wanted your shaker to move around, you could double this up, but I'm going to keep this a fairly low profile shaker, so I'm not going to double these up. And so I'll just put that all around the outside edge of my panel. And then I'll peel off all the release paper. Easy enough. And then I can take my shaker elements, which are going to be the sequins that came in this kit. And I'm going to pour those. I'm going to be pretty generous too, because keep in mind this is basically a 8.5 inch by 3 inch or 3.5 inch area to cover. So I'm going to be pretty liberal with the amount of sequins that I put in there. And then this is where another piece of acetate comes in handy, so I'm just going to stick that right on the back. I will have a little bit hanging off to the edge, but I can trim that off. And there I have my sequins nice and contained. Perfectly done. And that's my little trick. I've shown that before, so it's nothing new. And then it just makes it that much easier to attach it down. So I'll put some glue on the outside of my shaker element, and then we're going to attach this down to the cardstock that I had, layered up. And then I'm going to stick this down right over that seam where the one of the veins of the leaves is going to show. And so then you really can't see the seam at all. And you'll notice my paper actually is a little bit smaller than my shaker element, but you can't tell. I mean, once it's all put together, you won't be able to tell. I'll trim off all the excess of my pattern paper, and then I'm going to put some glue all over the back of this, and I'll attach this down to my slimline card base. I love it. You got this nice little white border, and you have a shaker all ready to go. For my sentiment, I'm going to use a magic powder bag over some of the green cardstock that came in the kit. Sweep all the excess of that powder bag away using my tonic super sweep or surface sweep or whatever it's called. And then I'll ink up my sentiment with some Versamark ink, which is just a clear sticky ink, and then cover that with some detail white embossing powder. And then I'm going to heat set that till that is smooth and melted. And the powder bag just does a good job of making sure that your powder doesn't stick to where you don't want it to. I did trim all around that just using some fussy cutting scissors, and then I'm going to attach that down just using some liquid glue since we already have a good amount of dimension, with this being a shaker. And then that's it. That is going to finish off our first card. I always love making a shaker, and you add that little Leafy Slimline die in there and I am a happy camper. For card number 2, we're going to be using the beautiful Slimline die, but before we get to that, I'm going to do some of the stamping. I just have some of the white cardstock that came in the kit, and I am going to put in a couple of the images into my MISTI. I'm doing this because these are solid stamps, and my favorite technique to do with solid stamps is a rock and roll technique. And so I'm just going to stamp down the vase with the color called Remember Me. And then I'll clean off my stamp, which probably isn't necessary because I'm using a blue. And all I'm doing is putting a little bit of that ink, this next ink, which is called Midnight Snack, all around the edges of that stamp. So then when I stamp it down, it gives this beautiful two-toned look. Now we're going to stamp our leaves. I'm just going to go with one color for this. That's some fake plant. I'll stamp that down a couple times just to make sure that I have a good solid crisp image. And then this is a 2-step stamp, so I'm going to pull in the little flowers that go with it, and I'm going to stamp those in a yellow, and that yellow is Over the Moon. And then we'll have these beautiful yellow flowers that will go on top of the vase. So then I'll pull these out and I'm going to use the matching dies that go with it, and they cut them out perfectly. Line that up with some purple tape and cut that out. Now here's the beautiful Slimline die, and once again I am going to do a little bit of paper piecing with the pattern, do a little bit of clever pattern paper piecing, if you want to call it, because obviously that's not going to go all the way across that Slimline. And so I do cut out the bigger, I don't even know what you want to call that, but it comes in the beautiful Slimline. I cut that out of that beautiful turquoise blue cardstock that came in the kit, and then I also cut out the outline of the Hello Beautiful right out of the middle of there, so I wasn't wasting any paper. And it's going to get covered by our pattern paper, so I am not concerned about that. That's just one way that you can extend the life of some of your paper, and then you feel like you're not really wasting anything, which is great. So then I'm going to tape down the first piece that I cut out, and then I'm going to line up the second one. And it just, if you pick out the right patterns, you can usually line it up really, really easily. And it worked out just great. So I'm so happy about that. And there is going to be a little bit of a seam, but I'll cover that again very, very simply. And then once it's covered, you'll never know that this wasn't Slimline paper. I'm going to take the Hello Beautiful that I cut out of the yellow cardstock that came in the kit, and I'll just glue that down to its outline. You'll notice that my purple tape did kind of tear my outline just a little bit, but it ends up being okay. The Hello Beautiful itself will sort of cover that, lay that down a little bit, and then you can't really tell. But yeah, sometimes I have issues with the purple tape. Sometimes it is a little too aggressive. And then we'll glue down all the rest of our bits, which is just the E and the 2 L's. But back to the purple tape, someone did give me a tip, and I'm always too lazy to do it. You can heat it up with like your heat gun on a low setting, and then you can usually peel it off because all you're doing is reactivating the glue behind the purple tape. Again, I haven't actually tried it because I'm a little too lazy. I want things to be done right now. And so I haven't actually tried it, but I imagine it really would probably work very well. Alright, so I took the negative from the Hello Beautiful and I'm just lining that up over the words just to make it a little easier for me to line up these letters. You could probably do it without it. The H and the O were attached to beautiful. It's just the E and the 2 L's that you would have to try and make that work. So here's where I'm going to cover up that seam, and you'll never know, like I said, that it wasn't a piece of Slimline pattern paper. We're going to glue down our vase with our flowers. And then we're going to use some foam tape on the big Hello Beautiful. I love this die. I feel like it's just so versatile. And I do like the Slimline portion that has the 2 curved edges. I just think that's so unique. Really like that. So I'll peel off the release paper on my foam tape, and then I'll attach down the Hello Beautiful. And then we do need to bring in some more pop of that dark blue. So I have a full piece of dark blue cardstock that came in the kit that I have cut down to 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches. So that is going to cover the full front of our Slimline card. And we're going to attach that down to a white card base. You could very easily stamp out some more images for the inside of your Slimline. I didn't do any stamping. I know that's shocking. I'll probably go back and redo it though, just simply because I like to have something on the insides. And then I'm going to take some of those glossy accents and we're going to go over the entire saying. So all over Hello Beautiful, and that way once it dries it'll have this beautiful glossy finish to it. And that doesn't take that long to dry, but you definitely want to set it off to the side. Make sure your cats, like in my case, aren't there to put their paws all in it. So there it is. That is card number 2. You could probably jazz it up with a few more embellishments, but I do love how the Hello Beautiful stands out with those glossy accents. For card number 3, we're going to make a little scene, and so I have pulled out the stitched Slimline dies, and I am going to use that on a couple of the different pattern papers. I love this dark blue. It's so pretty. And the reason I'm doing a scene is because one of y'all had suggested a scene with the deer and the house and a little sentiment, and I thought, well, let's try and incorporate that onto a Slimline. And I'm going to use this little cloud paper, and I'm actually going to turn that into some snowbanks. So I'm kind of freehand cutting the top part, and then I am going to end up cutting another snowbank, and we'll overlap these. But I did cut everything out using the stitched Slimline dies, just because I wanted the cohesion on the edges. And because those little snowbanks aren't standing out too much, I'm going to grab my Midnight Snack ink along with my mini Ergo blending brush, and then we're just going to blend some of that dark blue ink onto the edge of our snowbank, and then that'll make them really pop against each other. Otherwise they just kind of get lost with each other. But this paper is so pretty, and you can absolutely stencil or sponge or whatever you want to do right on top of it. And so now we'll attach our I guess this would be our sky onto our card base. The card base is just some of the dark or light blue cardstock that came in the kit. I've got a couple of the images into my mini Misty, and I do this just in case I need to restamp. And I'll stamp that deer using some brown ink. That's the Gur ink. I'll stamp it a couple times, and then the house I'm going to stamp that using that Over the Moon ink. And I'll stamp that a couple times as well. And then we'll pull out the matching dies and we'll cut those out. And I even stamped and cut a few of the leaves using that Midnight Snack as well. So that'll finish off our scene when we're ready to go. For the sentiment, I do have a scrap of some of that white cardstock. I'm going to stamp our sentiment that says "From our home sweet home to yours" using that dark blue ink that I've been using this whole time. And then I am going to cut that out using the stitched Slimline as well. So that way there'll be even more cohesion with that. And then now we're going to attach down our snowbanks. So I'll attach down the first one, and then I'll put our little house on the top, kind of tuck it behind that snowbank before it dries too much. And it'll even be a little wonky, which is kind of cute. And then we'll attach down our second snowbank. And then we're going to attach down our sentiment next so that I know where I want to place the deer. And you'll see those stitch lines on the edges. So it just adds this whole level of cohesion with all of them, which is cool. And now I'll attach down the little deer. He or she's going to be standing a little bit on the sentiment. And then those leaves are going to be tucked into little places, kind of on the snowbank as well as by the house. And then we are going to finish it off with some of the sequins that came in the kit. Again, I love, one of my favorite things about the Pink and Main kits is that everything matches so beautifully. You just don't have to think about anything. You can, mix and match it so easily. It just all goes together. The only thing you need to do is maybe bring in some colored inks, like in this case, or, a few tools, but otherwise you're good to go. So I'll attach down those sequins using this little jewel picker. It's newer, and I'm having a little bit of issue with it because it's super sticky, so I'm having to use my fingers as well, but otherwise this baby does grip those sequins super nice. And then once that last sequin is on there, that's going to finish off our third card. Love this little scene. Such a sweet idea. For card number 4, we're going to pull out that beautiful stencil and we are going to do some ink blending all across it. So I'm going to start off with my yellow. These are the colors I've been using the entire time. And then I'm going to switch to a light green. And then we're going to work our way down the stencil. And I love this stencil for a lot of reasons. It's just beautiful, but also because this would be easy to use on a Slimline. And I'll show you just how easy. It lines up perfectly. All right, so as I'm blending, I'm going to make sure and bring back in some more of that yellow so that that yellow and green blend smoothly together. Then we're going to bring in a dark green across the bottom. And then this is where you'll see, as long as I didn't go over the line, which I didn't, you can kind of position your panel right back up. And then this stencil, because it's so symmetrical, and there's Miles, he wants to say hello, always when I'm doing something fairly messy. Thankfully he didn't put his paw in any ink, but yes, you can easily line this stencil right back up over the top of what you just did, and that's what I'm doing. And then I'm going to bring in the light blue that I've been using, or the teal color that I have been using. So Miles needed to go, unfortunately. So we'll bring in that teal color, and then we're going to bring in that darkest color at the very, very bottom. And I am in love with this color combination and this color blend all the way down. This, oh, if I had to pick, this was probably my favorite card that I made. All right, for my stamping, I am going to do some unique stamping, I guess. This is a solid stamp, but you can kind of work with that. Originally, I was going to go with the blue, and then I decided, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with that yellow. We're going to stamp the whole thing with yellow, but I'm going to wipe away the wings. So it's just going to be mostly the body. So we'll stamp that out. And then we'll stamp it a couple times just to make sure that it is good and solid and crisp. And then I'm going to come in with that teal that I originally had started with. We'll stamp the whole thing, but we'll wipe away the center. So we'll just blot that away, stamp it down. And I'm loving it. And then we'll come in with the dark blue and just kind of round those edges. So we'll do that rock and roll technique here with the dark blue. And I am so happy with how that turned out. So then we'll use the matching die over the top of the butterfly. And then we're also going to use the stitched Slimline. We're going to use the second to smallest one because that's going to be used for our sentiment. And then we'll manipulate that so that we have stitching on both ends. And then we're also going to use the second to largest one for our long panel. And for our sentiment, we'll stamp that out just using that same dark blue ink that we've been using the whole time. And then we'll attach down our card panel to our card base. And our card base is some of the teal cardstock that came in the kit. And all of my Slimlines, I don't know if I've mentioned this, the bases all measure 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches. So I cut those papers to 7 inches by 8.5 inches and then scored at 3.5. And then I'm going to pull in those glittery enamel dots because they are just gorgeous and calling my name, especially for this one. So I'm going to line up all the colors over the top of their respective colors, and I just love how this turned out. So once we get that last one on there, that is going to finish off this card. So happy with how colorful this one is. For our 5th card, we're going to be using the Blessings Slimline die set, and I went ahead and cut out some of the glitter stock. I used the frame from this die set, and I also cut out the shadow of the words Autumn Blessings. I'm going to tack down my card panel. This card panel is just some leftover of the white cardstock, and I'm going to do some ink blending again. Basically the same sort of thing that I did on the previous card. This time I'm just going to use 2 colors. I am using some purple tape to tape off the one edge just so that I don't go a little too far in this one. And then I'm going to clean off my brush really well because I just used blue on that one. And so now we're going to bring it into the yellow, and you're going to need to clean off your brush really well. So I want this to go ombre. Sorry that my camera's kind of going in and out. When I ink blend, it has a tendency to think that I'm moving too fast, I guess. And so then on the bottom portion, we're just going to use the light green. Because this is supposed to be an autumn card, I thought it would be pretty to have that light yellow into the light green. And then we'll have that dark blue of the glitter cardstock that we're using as our, accent color, basically. So then we'll go back in, we'll do some more of the yellow on the other edge because this is a Slimline again. And I just think it's so fun that I was able to go Slimline all the way, doing all the cards Slimline. It was just so much fun. And I'll tell you, I used every ounce of the paper pretty much. of the cardstock that came in the kit. I still have a little bit of or quite a bit of the pattern paper left over, but I used every inch of the cardstock basically. I'm going to tack down that glitter cardstock border using some liquid glue, and I do have a little bit of hangover, but I'll cut that off. And then I'm just kind of positioning just to see where I want those other pieces. I did use some of the pattern paper to cut out the words Autumn Blessings, and now I'm just going to attach those down to their shadow using some of that liquid glue. And it's okay if some of the glue seeps out. It will dry clear, so I'm not worried about that. But for the Autumn Blessing, you definitely want to hang on to the little eye, or the little tittle of the eye. Just hang on to that piece. Don't lose it. But otherwise, it's all pretty well intact. Just the A and then the rest of Autumn. And then Blessing is all one piece, and then you just have your little tittle for the eye. And I only know that because of Laura Basson. I also know aglet for shoes, just so you know. The aglet is the little piece at the end of your shoelace that is the hard plastic bit. Yes, I learned that from Phineas and Ferb. All right, so I'm using some more liquid glue to tack down the word Blessings on our shadow. And I really love these colors together. Like I said before, I think when I was unboxing, these may not be colors that I would typically have picked out, but I love them together. I will definitely be going back to this color combo in the future. So just like before, same sort of stamping, except the leaves are going to be yellow and my flowers are going to be a dark blue. I thought that would be a little bit more autumn-like. And then I'm going to tack down my vases just using the liquid glue. On each edge, I wanted two vases of flowers, and I just love that color combination for the vase. You could go all kinds of fancy, and you could, you know, try and mask off parts of the stamp and stamp it out in different colors and just have a lot of fun that way. But I really love this color combo. I'm going to use some foam tape on the back of my flowers and on my words, and I'll tack down my flowers before I tack down the words, but I'm going to peel off all the release paper on both of the words so that I can kind of line those up before I actually put them down. So this way I can kind of see how they're supposed to be. And it's probably not straight. I'm really good at not putting it on straight these days. But there it is. Pretty happy with how that is. And then we're going to attach that down to a yellow card base. Again, I used all the cardstock. I think there might have been just a little bit of green left over, but actually now that I think about it, I don't think there was anything left over. And then for a final bit, I'm going to take those glossy accents and I'm going to go over the letters of Autumn Blessings, just because I love that look. And once that dries, it's just so beautiful. A little cloudy right now, but it'll, you know, make sure that it's good and clear by the time it dries. And that's going to finish off our 5th card. I do have a 6th card, just didn't have it filmed, so I'll show you that one as well. But here's card number 5. And then here is card number 6 using the Sympathy Slimline. And I think that one is one of my favorites as well. And now I'm going to show you all the cards. I would love to know which one was your favorite. If you did, in fact, have a favorite, what do you think of having done all Slimline cards with this card kit? Is that not super fun and super cool? We have 6 cards. Oh, I love it. So yeah, leave that down in the comment section down below if you had a favorite. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thanks for all the love and support you guys leave, for using my affiliate links, and for just everything you guys do, watching the commercials even. It really helps me and keeps me producing videos. So thank you all for all y'all do, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.